This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Boy, we got a big show this week. Training camp is right around the corner. By the next time that Adam and I will speak, it will be a situation in which we have seen a handful of Detroit Lions practices. We'll know who arrived, who didn't. We'll talk about that, what Adam's interested in learning about at the end of the podcast. But my goodness, drama galore this week. It was interesting in that the Tigers limped into the All-Star week. Surprising that they've lost 4 in a row. It really, in the end, may end up being a good thing for the Tigers. We'll talk about why. But Adam decided to piss me off right away to start the podcast. I looked at it and I said, is he going to put this on the sheet? No way he will. He knows the boy. He knows his guy. But he felt like, you know what? The guy that would probably be known as Michigan State public enemy number 1, Connor Stalions, had to spout off on X. And it's wild because if you're Connor Stalions, in my opinion, if you're him, you accomplish what you needed to do. You are what every fan that loves his alma mater or loves the team, loves the college that he roots for, you did everything you wanted to do. You gamed the system. You figured out a way to supposedly, allegedly, be on the sideline for a team you didn't work for. You used the skills that you had to, in some way, influence a program you loved. It got revealed. In the end, like everything else, your actions are always going to be filmed. People are going to know what you did and how you maneuvered. Everything in this world that people will investigate will be discovered. And you could maybe legalese your way out of things. But then to turn around when people are looking at and stating facts, to then just declare yourself the reason why success happened and then blame the players for not being able to tackle or struggle, just go away, dude. Just go away. I thought that seeing his rant was the height of ego, in my opinion. It just pissed me off. And the fact that you put it on this sheet, knowing that the Michigan Wolverines have made an off-season story into a 3-year story is crazy. But in the end, Michigan found a way to win a title. Their fans don't care. It's well documented. You can go back on YouTube and listen to Adam. He valued the integrity of the program. Michigan realized, and Jim Harbaugh realized that, hey, there's certain things you got to be willing to do in order to get over the hump, and they entered into those muddy waters, and now they got to pay for it. But for Connor Stalions to be able to go online and just brag about it, sometimes you just got to have that read the room. Like, just go away. You can brag to your friends. You can bring all the quarterbacks that you want to recruit to the program. Do what you want to do. But don't sit there and then highlight yourself when you've done something that has altered your program and how a wide variety and wide majority of people view the Michigan Wolverines. They are no longer viewed as the leaders and best. They're viewed as scum because they were willing to cheat to get their way, and they did everything possible to try and hide the truth as opposed to be accountable for their actions. And they figured out expertly. You got to give Michigan credit. They got the title. They were able to do what they needed to do. But in the end, why would Connor Stalions feel the need to draw attention to himself for something that I think you and many Michigan fans would kind of want to brush under the rug and keep it moving? It's like, you know what it is to me, it's like the bank thief that goes to the bank, robs the bank for $4 million, but then doesn't feel satisfied that they were able to get the $4 million. So then they got to show up in the fur coat. Then they got to show up and say, well, wait a minute. I was the one that did it. I was the mastermind. I was the one that planned it. I was the one that broke the code. I was the one that got all the... It's like, bro, shut up. Like in the movie Goodfellas, they did the heist, and all of a sudden, he all the people were showing up in fur coats and cars, and he's like, guys, stop doing that. Like, we're trying to kind of keep just quiet that we got $5 million. Connor Stalions just feels the need to regurgitate that yes, he was the sign expert and maybe finagled every rule to be able to get away with it. So to me, cuz, thanks a lot. It's like, what the hell? There's so much good shit to talk about. Why the hell you want to talk about Connor Stallions, who is somebody that I think Michigan should want to do away with in regards to how badly he represents their program? Boo.
So first off, it took a little bit for me to put this on our sheet, but I think in your analysis of who Connor Stallions is as a person, you've kind of hit the nail on the head, and I don't even think you realized it. He's a guy who needs the adulation. He's the guy who needs the notification. He's the guy who needs the notoriety. He needs to be looked upon, and he needs to be given his roses. That's what he's looking for. That's why he's doing this. Yes, I, like most Michigan fans, want him to just go away, just disappear. Nobody needs to hear you. Nobody needs to talk to you. Nobody needs to see you. There are some Michigan fans out there who are incredibly twisted, and they worship this guy. I think Connor Stallions wants more of that. He wants that from the entire fan base. He wants to be given that national championship ring. He's a guy who wants people to turn around and say, Connor, you're the reason we were able to do this. You were the reason we were able to put together those 3 amazing seasons. You were the reason, you were the one who led us to the championship. And yes, you weren't there to help us cross the finish line, but you were a major part of why we were able to win that national championship. And you have every right to stick your tongue out at the NCAA. You have every right to stick your tongue out at all of the coaches that we've played. You have every right to do all of these things. And the thing about it is, you're kind of a loser. Like, it tells you everything you need to know about what Connor Stallions is. He's kind of a loser. He's the dude who went to high school, and he was the big man on campus in high school, and he's never, ever really been able to get past that. Connor Stallions has that mentality. He is stuck. His mindset is so retarded that he can't grow out of that. And when I say retarded, I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I mean it. He's just slow. He can't evolve past this moment that he's stuck in time, and he needs to be acknowledged. That's what he's looking for. I think what he did going online and basically taking shots at Sonny Dykes, who was asked a question at his media day. He's still the coach at TCU, had some answers regarding everything that took place with Michigan and with Connor Stallions. Basically, yeah, we had some dummy signs, we had this, we had that. And Connor Stallions felt the need to go out there and defend himself, which there was no defending yourself. There was no need for it. He felt the need to go out there and do that. And essentially, everything he said in that mockumentary on Netflix, everything that he said to the NCAA, everything that he has come out and been very vocal about saying, hey, this had really no competitive advantage. I was just out there doing my job. Sign stealing is all part of the thing. All this, all that. He basically came back out and just admitted to all of it, which I think is probably the most damning thing, like the dumbest thing he could have did, because he's like, yeah, we did this. I knew all this stuff. I'm the smartest guy in the room. You're looking for a smart guy? It's right here. I'm that guy. Who's got 2 thumbs and is a genius? Me. That's Connor Stallions' mentality. And the thing is, bro, you just need to go away. Like, Michigan doesn't want you. You're a failed high school football coach. You need to evolve. You need to grow up. You need to go do something else, like anything else. Just go away. And again, I don't think it's so much the sign stealing. Like, I think that is part of the game. That there's a part of football where you're trying to uncover what everybody else is doing. It was to the lengths that he went. It was the financing friends and sending other people to other games and then videoing stuff that's taking place in games. If you catch it on the film, fine. If you can watch a couple of plays and you can kind of diagnose a couple of things that are taking place in the middle of a game from watching film, fine. If you pick up on a tell during a game that you're involved in, fine. But when you go to Michigan State or you go to Central for a Michigan State Central game and you dress up with your black rim glasses and your nose with the mustache, and everybody points out and say, hey, that's you. And you're like, that's not me. You can't prove that's me. That's not me. And everybody knows it's you. Like, you've crossed the line. And that's the thing. The big issue with all of this, everything with Connor Stallions, everything with Jim Harbaugh, everything with Michigan in this tenure that Harbaugh was at the top of it, you crossed multiple lines. It's not just kind of walking up to the line, maybe kicking a little dirt over it, maybe stepping on it. Michigan regularly crossed lines. When the NCAA comes to your school to have a conversation about different infractions and everybody runs away and hides and nobody wants to talk to the NCAA, you're crossing a line. The NCAA is giving you a life preserver. They're saying, just come talk to us. Let's just try to take care of this. Let's figure some stuff out. And you're like, no, nothing to see here. We're good. You just kind of go back through and you rehash all that history. You have everything that took place with JJ and his recruiting. You have everything that took place with Connor Stallions and the sign stealing. You have everything with Harbaugh basically thumbing his nose regularly at the NCAA and doing the different crazy things that he did. You had everything involved with Ward Manuel and different student athletes. You then compound all of that with everything that Sharon Moore is now dealing with. And I think that's why this won't die, because you still have branches of that tree from Jim Harbaugh that were involved in that cheating scandal that are still here and still thriving. And I think that is the big issue. And I think Connor Stallions is just that weed on the tree that won't die and go away, because he feels like he's much more important than he really is. He feels like he needs to be acknowledged. He feels like he is owed something from the University of Michigan. And dude, you just need to go, because what you're about to bring down upon Michigan when the NCAA finally, eventually gets around to it and handing out their penalty, Michigan fans, you're not going to be happy. You're not going to be happy. And look, you can say, you can never take the memory away from me. Correct. You can never take the times where Michigan beat Washington. You can never take the times where Michigan was winning Big Ten championships. You can never take the times away where Michigan was beating Ohio State. You can never take those things away. Correct. But in the history books, there's going to be a gigantic asterisk if your name is not completely erased. And that, I think, hurts worse. And the fact that you, as a program, you as a school, your calling card, the thing that you stood on, the thing that you pointed your nose down and looked down upon everybody else was, we don't cheat. We win the honorable way. We play with honor. You have no more honor. You are just as bad as Ohio State. You're just as bad as the Alabamas and the Georgias of the world. You're just as bad as the SEC scum that you always said that you were better than. You are no better than any of them. You are garbage. And that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is that Michigan, before we start talking about the Tigers and their kind of slip a little bit here ahead of the All-Star break, where do you see this thing ending with Michigan? Like, I think that Michigan has benefited from the idea, which is so true, which is why people drag shit out legally, is that you just in the end lose interest. It's like, okay, are they ever going to get punished? Are they going to face a situation? I do think it's since they get the notice, it's like 60 days. So it's like maybe we're a month away, or 90 days, right?
It's 90 days.
And it's been a couple years since. So to me, it's like one of those deals where it's been so long that you don't even care anymore about the punishment, because it's like they've won the title, they've gotten their recruits, they've done their fake bans. It's like, already, let's just move on, and let's just hopefully for the future put in place some factors so that teams like Michigan don't feel the need to try and skirt the rules and focus on gray areas to try to win games. What's going to happen here? Like, is it just going to be a slap on the wrist? Do you think there's going to be a postseason ban, scholarship, big fine? I don't know, because it doesn't seem to me like Michigan cares in any capacity what's going to happen here.
You know, it's weird, because I would say that the records would be scrubbed and that championship would be erased. The NCAA at one point said that's not the case, and then all of a sudden it sounds like that might be back on the table. I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a hefty fine. I could definitely see a possible show cause penalty for Sharon Moore, which means Michigan's going to have to find a head coach with the season basically on the verge, because I believe what'll happen is the NCAA will come out with all of their with their ruling and all of that jazz and all of their findings and all that stuff in August. The season starts end of August, beginning of September. So I think it's going to put Michigan in a bit of a bind where they might have to make a couple of decisions. It might have to do something that maybe they're not prepared to do, or maybe that they don't want to do. But I do believe there's going to be a massive fine. I do believe that Sharon Moore is going to receive a penalty. Jim Harbaugh's already got the show cause penalty, so he's been taken care of. It really comes down to, and I'm not sure what they're going to want to do with the record book, right? I'm not sure what they're going to want to do with those regular season wins or with those wins before the NCAA started informing different teams. I believe it started with that week against Michigan State where they're like, hey, do you want to play these guys? There's a lot of this. We're conducting an investigation with them cheating. They may have your team's information. Do you want to continue to play against them? Because you don't have to. You can say no. And Michigan State chose to play against Michigan in that game. I don't know if up until maybe that point, those wins might have to be forfeited. I'm not sure how it's going to work out. I could see that being the case and see that playing out. But again, I'm not sure what the NCAA is going to want to do. It's to me, it really feels like the NCAA did have an axe to grind with Jim Harbaugh, and rightfully so.
Williams defend.
It felt like Michigan could have somehow worked out a deal with the NCAA, and the NCAA and Michigan could have came to some type of compromise, and the NCAA would have came down and be like, this is our penalty for you. And just Michigan needed to acknowledge it. But Michigan in their verbose and just their inability to have any sort of humble nature would be like, nope, we negotiated that. We took care of a lot of this. It might have been worse, but we stepped in and we made it better. Like Michigan has to always have the spotlight on them and point out whatever it is that they've done. They're that annoying friend that you have that you just want to punch in the face often. So man, I don't know what the end result is going to be. I could see a forfeiture of wins. I do believe there's going to be a very hefty fine. You could see the banning of postseason play, which, let's be honest, I don't even know where the hell Michigan's at in regards to the rest of the landscape of college football with getting there. Last season was absolutely awful to watch. Yes, they got some stuff figured out, and the win against Ohio State was great, but like that team was just an utter chaotic mess all season. I do think that you could see something heavy happen to Sharon Moore, though.
Okay. Yet to be seen. Make sure you stay tuned to @Detroit Podcast as we can monitor and see what's going on ahead of the college football season. Some decisions got to be made, and eventually the facts will come out, and hopefully journalists will relay exactly what happened, free of opinion, free of bias, and let's just see what happened. And most importantly, to move forward, to be able to learn and grow so that doesn't ever happen again. Now, Cuz, how concerned are you? 4 games? They get swept by the Seattle Mariners. It's a tough series. They come into the All-Star break still with one of the great records in Major League Baseball, but I think that what everybody saw was kind of a Tigers team that was a little bit sloppy, maybe just kind of mentally checked out a little bit ahead of a break, but they didn't play Detroit Tigers baseball against the Mariners in any capacity, losing 3 games and really not playing Detroit Tigers brand of baseball. Conley, I think in 3 appearances, didn't record a single out. That's crazy. Those are some wild ass numbers, and then some big innings really started to impact. I mean, you know, when Scuba doesn't have his greatest outing, that okay, the tail stretch there wasn't the best, but I do think it's a good thing. The silver lining to me, Cuz, is that it clearly highlights, okay, the bullpen will be upgraded. You might even get 2 guys in that bullpen because outside of Will Vest, it's not a lot of guys you can fully trust right now. It's a team that I think limped to the All-Star break, but I think a team that will benefit from some time off. They'll come back stronger, and I don't think it'll be the collapse of the Detroit Tigers, but that was definitely eye-opening to lose 4 straight games going to the break.
Yeah, look, I think they definitely limped. It almost felt like as though they mailed in those last couple of games. Look, a 4-game losing streak is something that they haven't done all year long. And I think watching this stretch of baseball is incredibly eye-opening for what this team needs and what this team is going to have to do either in this little bit of a lull that they have before the second half of the season starts and right before the trade deadline. I feel like if you're the Detroit Tigers, you have to go out there and you have to be incredibly aggressive to address the holes in this team, because what I've seen over the last 4 games, this team is not a World Series contender. I think when they get into the postseason, they are going to struggle mightily. And I think my view on what this team needs most has changed. I've been a guy who's basically said starting pitching. And look, it's because I do not believe in Jack Flaherty. I feel like Jack Flaherty is an incredibly weak link on this team. And I feel like at a certain point, he's going to get you in trouble. He's the guy who you are counting on to go out there and get big outs and help win you a game. And I feel like at a certain point, he's going to falter and he's going to give you the bad Jack Flaherty, not the one that could be good. And so that's why I've been riding this train of starting pitching is so important. But after this stretch of games, my view has changed dramatically. You've got to go out there. You need to get somebody to help solidify that bullpen. You brought up Will Vest. Even Will Vest struggled a little bit in that series against the Mariners. So at a certain point, you've got to figure out what you're doing with the back end of this rotation. Tommy Kahnle looks good. I don't know if, and again, AJ Hinch doesn't like to use the term closer, but I don't know if he could be your closer. Will Vest, I feel like, is better suited in that setup role. Maybe that eighth inning guy sometimes comes in and gives you a little bit of that long relief and gets you through the ninth as well. But I feel like you need to add two more arms because the guys that were getting it done last year, they're definitely not getting it done this year. And to watch the bullpen's ERA balloon starting, I think it was May 30th through now we're into the middle of July, has been eye-opening and has been alarming. And I think that relief pitching has to be something that they're going to have to figure out and uncover. I feel like you need two more arms for that bullpen, and then I feel like you're going to have to get a bat. I feel like with your starting pitching at this point in time, depending on how much you're looking to really go all in and really what you're looking to give up, I feel like you almost have to ride or die with your starting pitching. To me, it is relief arm, and then it's a bat somewhere, a right-handed bat that's going to be able to drive in runs for you. What do you feel is the most important need of this team still? Do you still believe it's relief pitching after watching what you've seen from this 4-game losing streak?
Yeah, it's clear, right? And I'd like another starter too. I like a lot. I'd like a reliever. I'd like a starter. I'd like a bat. I like it all. I think the team is close, but you're right. There's a delicate balance because you clearly know it's not a team that's the best team in baseball, and they can get hot and have the opportunity to. But I'm fascinated to see what eventually ends up happening with the Detroit Tigers. I do think they'll make a move, but what was the most concerning aspect? Was it the pitching? Was it the fact that there was a lot of sloppy errors? Was it, just kind of felt like it did feel like the team kind of mailed it in. Didn't it kind of feel that way? That the team just kind of went in looking with their eyes on a vacation and they didn't play as crisp of baseball. And when you don't, then you have an opportunity to get beat. I just think that it's clear. You need relievers. You need to secure behind, your starting staff that you think will peak at the right time. That you can't have guys that are giving up runs like that and are inconsistent. So I'm fascinated to see how it eventually is going to look.
Yeah, look, I think the pitching as a whole was something that really stood out to me. When your best guy in Tarek Skubal goes out there and struggles, right, and looks good, but then the team gets knocked around and gives up a couple of untimely hits. Yes, pitching is getting called into question. I think the bigger issue that I took and the bigger issue that I had with this team as a whole was more just the effort. And like we said, it really did feel like they had I-75 eyes, right? Like these guys have played really, really great baseball for the first half of the season. And I felt like the guys in that locker room have kind of turned the chapter on the first half. They have the best record in the American League. They're one of the best teams in baseball. They've got 6 guys going to the All-Star game, and I think they're just kind of like, cool, we need some time to get away. We need a little bit of a break. We're going to put this into coast mode. If we get a couple of wins here down the stretch, great. If we don't, whatever. It's okay. We're going to come back and we're going to pick things up for the second half of the season. And it's that mentality. And I think AJ Hinch and I think this coaching staff has done a fantastic job of having these guys keep everything in perspective, right? You win a couple of games and you start winning series. He kind of regrounds them and is like, look, guys, don't get too big for your britches. This is kind of where we're at. These are things that have to get worked on. The stunning thing is after a loss or after they lose a series, I think they've only lost like 3 series all year long. 4 after this one with the Mariners. They haven't lost very many series. And I think that's incredible. I mean, they've only been swept by the Dodgers and now by the Mariners in these series. So, like, that tells you how good of baseball they're playing. If they're not winning them, they're at least scratching out a victory in the game. So, or in the series. And I think that's been something that AJ Hinch has been able to really do a really great job with this team, is keeping them dialed in and keeping them focused. And I think along the road here, the last 5 days of the season, or 5 days of this first half of the season, that kind of waned. I think maybe AJ Hinch maybe let up a little bit. I think the guys themselves in that locker room let up a little bit. And what I think is probably really, really alarming is there wasn't a veteran who maybe stood up in that room. Now, this is a very young team. And really and truly, they've got one superstar, and that's Tarek Skubal. Nobody in that locker room really stood up and said, guys, let's refocus. Let's redial in. Like, it's cool if AJ Hinch is kind of like, okay, you guys, we're doing good. Let's just kind of get through this first half of the season. Let's get to the second half healthy. Let's just kind of get through this. But I would love to have seen a veteran in that room, or somebody take some command, take some authority, and just say, guys, get your heads out of your ass. Let's go win some baseball games. The first half of the season isn't done. Yes, we're going to have an amazing second half. We're going to do some really good things here, but let's get our heads out of our asses and let's go play some really good baseball to close out this first half of the season. And I didn't get that, which then kind of leads me to my expectations for the second half of the season, because I now have red flags everywhere. I've got alarm bells going off, because I feel like you're going to need this front office to make multiple swings and hit multiple home runs to get some guys in here to really help balance out this lineup. And I don't know if the front office is willing to part with the pieces that are needed to turn this into a World Series caliber team. And then I've already mentioned the veteran leadership that I don't necessarily think is there. I think AJ Hinch has done a really great job with these guys. And again, a very young team, which I think is awesome for the future. But when you're in the middle of it, when you're in the middle of that grind, when you're in the middle of a playoff series and things start to slide a little bit, you've seen it with the Cleveland series last year. Things started to slide and this team was never really able to right that ship. Usually a veteran can come in and can calm that room down and can lead either by doing or with a couple of words and really help refocus this team and get them back on. I don't know if that's in that room. And so I think front office has to also try to address that while trying to fill some of those positions. And I don't know. And look, I don't expect this team to go out and do what they did this first half of the season. I think what they did the first half of the season is absolutely nuts. Like, there's no way this team's going to end up winning 110 baseball games. I just don't think that's possible. I don't think they are built for that, especially with some of the injuries that they've had to their starting pitching. But I don't want to see this team come into the second half and start to falter right away. I don't want to see this team now start to end up lose series. Remember, the one thing about this team that's been so incredible is they don't lose series. That's the one thing we come on here and we say all the time. Yes, they might lose a game here or there. They might lose games back to back, but this team doesn't lose series. I would hate for this team to come out of the gates losing series, because that can start to spiral and it could end up leaving a really bad taste in that locker room. And if you don't get that rooted out, it could really build and could really derail a team. And look, I don't think they're going to have this train derailment of a second half of the season, but I need this team to come in. I need this team to be focused, and I need them to be dialed in like they were for that first half. My expectation for this team has changed from when we first started talking about wins and losses for this team earlier in the year. I now expect this team to win 98 games. I expect them to obviously run away with the Central, and I expect them to win, or I expect them to have the best record in the American League. I expect them to win the American League pennant and be in the World Series. Now, that I think is going to really come down to what Scott Harris does and how many guys they can bring in to really address some of those holes. But those are my expectations. What are your expectations for this team for the second half of the year, especially coming off of the heels of what has kind of felt like not your typical Detroit Tiger baseball team? It just did not feel the same over the last couple of days.
Yeah, no, I expect them to continue to play the way that they play. Advanced runners, play technically sound, be good defensively, muscle up, continue to hit home runs. I just think that, look, it happens, and that's why I think A.J. Hinch handled it perfectly. He said, look, that just wasn't us, and it just happens throughout the course of the year. Look, we all have bad days. We all sometimes, you and I come on here, and sometimes we start talking, we forget to push the button. There's so many buttons we got to push. It just sometimes you don't have your best day. And, for the Tigers, it just resulted in losses. And I do think that they had I-75 vacation eyes, and they'll come back dialed in. And once they get closer to winning the division and, having opportunities, I do think that playing the Rangers will be good. It'll be a nice test for them. It's another primetime feature when they get back. So I expect this baseball team to get after it and to continue. And it's good is that when you win a bunch of games, it sets you up to be able to have 4-game losing streaks. It happens. And you just hope that they come back strong in the second half of the year. You hope that the number one thing I'm looking for is Scott Harris to add to this team and to not give up the farm and to be able to, really win games, win series, and get back to what we saw, which is, hey, win 7, 8 games out of 10 and get after it and be in contention to win the division. And really, this is getting to the point now where it's about, all right, playoff positioning, where they look, how they're playing when they get to September. So remember, July and August is about positioning, stay healthy, and get some guys back, hopefully, that have an opportunity to shine. Now, before we talk about Jared Goff and what you liked, if you saw all 7 episodes or you just fast-forwarded through Kirk Cousins whining to his coach via voice memo, or Joe Burrow with his flamboyant, per se, stylist there, I'm curious because training camp starts Sunday. I'll be out there. Look, the early parts of camp, are just light, competitive periods. You get a chance to see the guys, injury updates, who holds out, who's there, who's not there. That's what the first couple of days are about. But what are you keenly interested in? We're going to review what Jared Goff brought to the table. Did you learn more about him? He recently posted, and it's now official online. He's a girl dad. His good timing by him. He had his daughter. Pictures are all over the internet, and you can check it out at Detroit Podcast. He's now a girl dad and looks like he's proud of it. And he's in the same boat as Adam and I. It's a great feeling to be able to have daughters. And now Jared Goff.
Girl dads are cool, man.
Girl dads are cool.
Be a girl dad. It's great.
Yeah, and he's rocking the Barstool girl dad hat, so he's embracing it. And it's a good thing. Good timing by Jared Goff. But to me, cause early training camp, I'm just looking at the rookies, the developmental players. And I think the one thing that everyone's kind of paying attention to is, are these second rounders, 30 out of 32, are sticking together? You don't really typically see that. A unified front wanting their guaranteed dollars. I think that's a stand. That's a stand saying, hey, make it happen. Guarantee my money or I'm not coming to training camp. And I'm shocked that that you don't think 30 guys that have different interests would show solidarity. I think that for their interest, it's not great for the Lions if Tate Ratledge holds out, but for second rounders, I do think there should be a privilege of being one of the first 60 picks. Have your money guaranteed, especially with Detroit Lions training camp. Especially with training camp around the corner. I do think it's important, and I truly do see both sides of it. The business side is, hey, I need my money. It's a rough sport. I'm one of the top 50 players in the whole wide world that you think helps your team. Guarantee my money. It's a violent sport. But on the other end, teams are like, shit, if we do that, then you know what's going to happen next year. The third rounders are going to want guarantees, and it's just going to be, I wonder who budges first. And that's what I get my juices flowing, like who budges? Because this is a negotiation, and I'd love to be an arbiter kind of going back and forth, going, Tate Ratledge's agent's going, the first 2 picks got guaranteed, and we're waiting to see what the Seahawks do at the third spot, and do the other get guarantees, because you don't want to take a non-guaranteed contract and you're the only one in the whole second round. So that's the early stuff is, two things. Does Ratledge show up? Does Alex Anzalone show up? And do they take care of a contract for Aiden Hutchinson, or some of the early things I'm looking out for? What do you want to see? What are you kind of keenly looking at for the first 3-4 days before we report back next week for our podcast?
Yeah, I think it's crazy that all these second rounders are holding out like that. Usually, you don't see a
Solidarity.
massive guys doing that together. Um, and I think it's a very dangerous, slippery slope that the National Football League and the owners are now upon. Like you said, if they start doing this with the second rounders, when do the third rounders say we want guaranteed contracts? When do the fourth rounders say that? And then when you get into the fifth round, we want half guaranteed. You know, some of those guys don't even make the roster, so you're gonna be cutting checks for dudes who aren't even playing sometimes. So I do think it becomes a very dangerous game that they're playing. And you know, again, for general managers, if you hit 50% most of the time, you're doing a pretty good job. It gets progressively harder to hit that 50% mark and be on the positive side of it the later you get in these drafts. So it's going to be interesting to see if they get this worked out. I think overarching before the season really gets started, that is one thing that I'm watching, one thing that I'm focused on, to kind of get a little bit more micro with the Detroit Lions. I do want to see the development of the young guys. I want to see who's out there competing for starting positions. I want to see what's going to happen with last year's cornerbacks. You know, is Ernest Rakestraw going to take the necessary steps forward to really push for a starting job? Does Terrion Arnold clean up some of the issues that he had, and does he take that monstrous step forward this season? I want to see what's going on with that offensive line. I'm curious to see who's going to be playing the role of center and how all of that's going to work out. Again, without Tate Rutledge, I mean, this guy who might have been your center and now he might not be playing. Who knows? Because he's not signed, so he's not going to be there practicing. Going to be interesting. I do think Alex Anzalone comes back. I think he'll come back, he'll work out, and I think they'll get a contract done for him. Well, something that'll appease both sides. I don't know if it's going to be necessarily the dollar amount that he wants or maybe the term that he wants, but I think it'll be something to kind of bridge that gap for them, and that'll get sorted out. I think your question on Aiden Hutchinson is incredibly interesting because I don't know if that gets done.
Right.
You know, the longer and longer we go with this, I don't know if it get in. Look, if you're speaking purely from Aiden Hutchinson's side of it all, he's in no rush. What's the rush? There's no rush for him. The longer he sits, the more guys sign contracts, guys like Micah Parsons and TJ Watt. And once they reset the market, he comes in and he resets it. So there's no rush for him. I think if anybody's feeling pressure, it's probably Brad Holmes, because you're trying to get something as financially viable for this team and put this team in a position to have long-term success that is completely affordable as far as the salary cap goes. So for Aiden Hutchinson, I don't think he's in a rush to get it done. I think your general manager is probably the guy who is maybe pressing a little bit more, and by all marks needs to be pressing a little bit more. Also, you're looking to get that done so you know how much money you have to spend on other guys. I think part of the reason why you haven't seen a guy like a Zadarius Smith brought in, why you haven't seen that Alex Anzalone extension or whatever's going to get worked out, why guys like Tate Rutledge hasn't been signed yet, it's probably because you're still trying to hammer out some of the finances on what you're doing with Aiden Hutchinson, so you know how much money you can allocate to these other guys. So I kind of feel like that's a bit of the sticking point right now. And so I don't think it gets done. I can see that being something that probably doesn't get hammered out until the end of this season.
Yeah, exactly. Or you wait and see until Watt, you go third. You wait, and then you guarantee yourself to be the market setter and guarantee that you're the highest guy going into the year. It's wild to think that Aiden Hutchinson could be earning north of $45 million a year, or it's going to be a situation in which his agent should say, yeah, wait for Watt, wait for Trey Hendrickson, and you get the highest amount because he's the youngest. He's the most probably projected to get the most sacks over the next 5 years. So yeah, wait and see. Don't take a lowball offer, because the second he signs for 41, TJ Watt's going to be like, I want 45, and then Trey Hendrickson's going to be like, I want 45 too. So you don't want to put yourself in that kind of position. So I do think he waits, and he's going to be the third guy. he'll be the third guy to eventually get it. So it's going to be a fascinating look at camp. Make sure you stick with @Detroit Podcast for the central hub of everything you need to know about Detroit sports and Detroit Lions. And it'll be a privilege and an honor to be back out there again to bring coverage. And stay tuned. Like I said, we give giveaways and @Detroit Podcast, the central hub, one of your favorite locations for Detroit sports. So, Cuz, you got a chance, I presume. I'm going to guess you did not watch all of Kirk Cousins and Joe Burrow because it got tedious. Hopefully because if you did, man, you watched 7 long hours. I did it in one day, but I had time and before the NFL season. But I think I didn't even think to, because I'm a crazy person. I didn't think to skip 4 because I like Kirk Cousins. I think he's so uniquely crazy in that, he's a guy that's really into his job, leaving voice memos over the phone, going, man, coach, we're winning games, but I don't feel good. I don't know what's going on. And I'm sure on the other end, at one point, Raheem Morris turns to his wife and goes, God dang, man, it's 8 o'clock. We won the game. This guy's blowing me up with 8-minute voice memos. He should have been like, that was a precedent we probably should have never set. But Kirk Cousins, you do get an inside look at a guy that, had the rug kind of pulled out from under him. But you know what makes a guy like that be able to bounce back pretty quickly? $100 million guaranteed. I think he'll fall just fine with the safety net cushion that he was able to secure. I think he'll be just fine. And then Joe Burrow is just a little bit out there, a little bit egocentric and a little bit wild. But the Jared Goff stuff, like I've said before, you get a chance to see a player that is gritty, and I thought that would be showcased in a way that would make himself look better, and that's what he did. My only critique was I just thought it was just way too much of his wife. I would have wanted to see him talking to Ben Johnson, talking to Amon-Ra. You get to see one scene with dinner with Amon-Ra, but does he have dinner with Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker? Does he go golfing with the guys? It just felt like this is the Jared and Kristen show for part 5, where she's always there. It's like, is this Kristen Yoko Ono Goff, or can we see a little bit of other stuff without his wife there? Because we know, okay, yeah, she's a supportive fan. She's going to be crying when they lose. And I understand why she's there, but I would have just liked to have seen the dynamic with him as a leader, him in the meeting rooms. Cuz, does Jared Goff have meetings with Hendon Hooker? Is Hendon Hooker part of the team? Does he talk to Hendon? Does he like Hooker at all? Does he like Teddy Bridgewater? Teddy Bridgewater was on the team for a week. We don't get a chance to see, hey, Teddy, welcome back. Like, there were no other quarterback. Like, wait, do the Lions have other quarterbacks besides Jared Goff? So I just thought that from a production standpoint, I think if you and I were sitting down, we would have written the storyboard a little bit more than Kristen Harper supporting Goff and being like, yay, I get to go to Detroit, and crying when they lose. We would have expanded the storyboard like, hey, how does Jared Goff mentor Hendon Hooker? That's valuable. How does Jared Goff talk to Dan Campbell in right after the Bills game? Like, man, not even 3 minutes of, hey, look at this, man, you turned the ball over a little bit too much, you need to be like this. Just a little bit of some uplifting stuff. So I would have liked to have seen more of, in essence, Jared Goff. And instead, it was the buttoned-up kind of version of it. And the first couple episodes, you could basically skip because it was the Burrow and Cousins show. But once they got into it, you do get to see a guy who's gritty and is hungry to win a Super Bowl, which is what you wanted to see. And eventually, that's why I gave it like a B+, A-. It was good, but not earth-shattering. Not anything that, if you don't know sports, you would be like, oh, wow, this is crazy. But you get to see a little bit more of his personal side, walking the dog, fishing, and talking a little shit to opponents. That was fine. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more of the in-depth personality of his relationship with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, look, I think the big thing that I took away from this was she is incredibly involved in what he's got going on, and that's fantastic. I feel like from a production standpoint, probably didn't need her as much. And I'm going to say something that might be a little hot take-ish. I don't know. For a SI swimsuit model.
Hey,
she's very pretty. I think she's very pretty. I don't think she's all that great though. Like, I think she's a good looking girl, right? Like a scale of 1 to 10, she's a good looking girl. Probably a solid 8.5 maybe. And so I was really surprised that they honed in and focused on her that much. The one thing I will say is I absolutely do love her. Like, she is such a breath of fresh air compared to the skank that was here with our other quarterback. Like, she is not Kelly Stafford at all. And I think that is absolutely fantastic. She's a breath of fresh air when it comes to that. It doesn't really feel like she's also the quarterback of this team. You know what I'm saying? It really does feel like, yeah, Jared's the quarterback and I'm his spouse. He's going to go do all these things and he's fantastic. Whereas I felt like with Kelly, she was kind of the talking piece for Matt Stafford a lot, and that was annoying. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more involvement with Jared Goff and Dan Campbell, a little bit more involvement with Jared Goff and Ben Johnson. And I think that leads me to another big takeaway that I had. Besides, Kirk Cousins is just a really weird freaking dude. Like, Kirk Cousins is very, very weird. That was another thing I took away from this. And I said it probably in episode 3. I was like, he's a strange cat. Like, he's just odd. But I think this team, specifically this offense, might be in some trouble this year. I know John Morton's been here. I know that he has worked with Jared Goff, but to see Jared Goff and Ben Johnson basically be of the same mindset in the middle of games when you need a crucial play, you can see Jared Goff begging for a play, and obviously Ben Johnson can't hear him because the two-way system only goes one way, but you can see Jared Goff begging for a play, and then Ben Johnson calls that play in, and it's executed to perfection. So I think their dynamic is absolutely fascinating. So to lose a guy like Ben Johnson, we've said this from the beginning. I do think there's going to be a little bit of a couple of step backs that are going to be taken with this offense. I don't expect this offense to be as efficient and as dynamic as it was last year. That being said, I'm not saying that it's not going to be good. I just don't think it's going to operate at the caliber that it operated at last year. I do think there's going to be growing pains through the first 6 weeks of the season, and I could see there being a bit of a blunder, a bit of a miss, and possibly some butting of heads in a crucial moment when Goff wants a certain play, Morton's calling another play in, and Dan Campbell kind of has to step in, and things just don't go the way that they're supposed to go. And instead of getting the play in, getting it off on time, you're now hit with a delay of game penalty, and you might have to burn a timeout when you didn't want to. I could see all of that taking place because those two guys were so locked in with each other. It would be nice to hear some stories coming out, and obviously they haven't started playing games yet, but to hear with the install, to hear Jared Goff and John Morton, or John Morton taking Jared Goff's input when he's doing the install. Maybe that's going on. Maybe we just haven't heard it. Maybe that they've had conversations because technically the preseason hasn't really even kicked up and gotten underway yet. But that those guys are talking. That Jared Goff's at the facility. That they're working on different aspects of this offense. It'll be good to see that Jared Goff does have as much of a say as he had with Ben Johnson, because I thought that was incredibly important with all of this.
Yeah.
I thought this version of quarterback. So this is like basically version 2 of quarterback. You had the first one 2 years ago. Then last year you had receiver with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I'm into episode 5 or 6. I'm almost done with it. I have like 1 or 2 more episodes left to go. I think I think they did a really good job with putting it all together. Everything said and done. I think you get a real interesting look of 3 of these quarterbacks at different stages of their careers, right? You've got Kirk Cousins, who obviously on the downside of his career, the back stages, he goes through something in the middle of the season that was absolutely devastating to him, getting supplanted by Michael Penix. You see kind of the injuries that he's dealt with. You see the interactions he has with the coaching staff. His wife's another one who I feel like if I was an Atlanta fan, I probably would get a little bit annoyed with because she's a little bit weird herself. You get to see what a strange duck he really is. Like, my man did a Great Clips commercial in the middle of getting a haircut at Great Clips. Like, it was friggin' bananas to me. But you also get to see, like, whenever he goes places, I think people are like, you look familiar. And he's like, oh, I'm just the guy. Like, he does play it really low key, really mild mannered. Like, oh, I just travel for work. I'm in and out of town a lot. It never really tips the cap that he is the starting quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons, or was the starting quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons. With Joe Burrow, you got to see a completely different side of him. Like, there's a lot going on with his persona. And I don't know how much of it's manufactured and how much of it's actually legit. The fact that he has a stylist, and there's a scene where his stylist is talking to him, and you asked me, like, did you laugh when you seen the stylist? And I died. I died laughing. The suit that he wanted to put him in, and then we're gonna call it a duffel bag. It was the size of a large suitcase. He's like, and I think you should have this handbag too, which was made of the same material and the same pattern that basically the suit was just absolutely bonkers to me. And I just died laughing. Like, I couldn't control it. The fact that he has a stylist and he's got like a wardrobe that just kind of gets wheeled around the house so he can pick out what outfits he's going to wear when he shows up to the stadium is kind of bonkers to me. And again, I don't know how much of that is manufactured. I don't know how much of that is legitimately him. I'm sure it's somewhere in the middle. But he too, and this is probably the big takeaway from all of this, quarterbacks are a little bit different.
Yes.
And you kind of seen it with Jared Goff. Jared Goff's probably the most regular guy out of all of these guys. Really kind of quiet, mild-mannered. I think, again, specifically for the Lions with Jared Goff, there is no doubt about it. He is the leader of this team. He is the guy. When things are going sideways and things aren't going well, he's on the sideline talking to different guys. He's saying, hey, I messed that up. That's on me. He takes ownership for his mistakes, and he's looking to get this team to that finish line. I thought this did a fantastic job of portraying him, and I thought it was really, really well done. And I think he comes out looking incredibly well on it. And I don't think that is all manufactured. I think maybe there might be a little bit of creative editing there. But for the most part, I feel like what you get with Jared Goff is who Jared Goff is. He is a genuine guy. And I think that is probably the biggest compliment I could pay to him, is he is a genuine guy and he is a stand-up dude. And I think this is going to sound really weird, because when this was all going on, I was talking to my wife, because I remember the day they traded for him. I remember the exact conversation I had with my best friend, Jeff. We were at his house. We were drinking. We were in his basement. And I got the notification on my phone. I looked at him. I was like, they just traded Matt Stafford. And he was devastated. He's like, oh, the season's over. This is going to suck. What the hell are they doing? And he was basically burying Dan Campbell, burying Brad Holmes. And I was basically trying to talk him off the ledge. I was like, bro, don't even worry about it. I was like, this is great. You get those extra draft picks. This is going to be fine. This is your bridge quarterback for the next couple of years. He is going to be the guy to help set some of this foundation. And we're going to go take a quarterback, and he'll be gone in 18 months. You don't even got to worry about it. And I remember telling Alyssa about this as they were kind of talking about him getting traded from LA. And I can't be happier that I was wrong, because I don't think he's the best quarterback in the league. I don't think he's the most talented quarterback in the league, but I do feel like he is the perfect guy. Get you to the finish line. Can he get you across it? Time will tell. But I feel like he is what is perfect for this team, and I feel it's fantastic that the city embraces him the way that they do.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. Big year for Goff. How much patience will the fan base have if it's not a year that delivers a Super Bowl? He's got to play well. Answer some of those question marks regarding the turnover and the offense and what's it going to look like with John Morton leading it. So I'm very fascinated to see how it's going to shake out. And it starts Sunday at Detroit Podcast. Make sure you follow along, and we'll bring you coverage. July 31st, there's a game. It's going to be crazy to see the Detroit Lions take the field against the Chargers. Let's see who takes the field, who's part of the mix at training camp, and who isn't. There could be some holdouts. There could be some drama. Let's pay attention to everything that's going on. So thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Make sure you like and subscribe everywhere that you listen to your favorite audio content. Type in Detroit Sports Podcast, and our content will find you, dedicated to Michigan Wolverines football, Michigan State basketball, Michigan State football. Eventually, we'll get there. Tigers, Pistons, Wings, and the Detroit Lions, definitely bringing you in-depth coverage, analysis, opinions, and good in-depth conversation with my guy, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Follow him at Adam RSTROZ. We got a chance to hang out. It was a beautiful day. His kid brought the sunshine to a great birthday party, and it's always great to spend an afternoon with Adam and his family. It was a great time. It definitely was the highlight. The true highlight of the offseason was the rain pushing up right until the start of the party, and then it cooling down to make everybody comfortable and have a good time, and the smiles and the abundance of food and the laughs and the jokes, and it was a good time all the way around. And it's always great to be to spend time with your family. And now it's time to cover the Detroit Lions. Let's see what happens. It could be the epic journey, or it could be another collapse. We'll see what happens because there's a lot of outside narratives. Let's see who ends up winning. Is it going to be the Detroit Lions, or is it going to be the rest of the league? So pay attention to @Detroit Podcast, and I can't wait to fire it up next week for the next episode of Doc and Jock.
You fucking podcasters. I said don't let them in here.